I was trying to be real vague about it, but that party traumatized me.
Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up.
I don't throw the typical Hollywood extra uptight party.
People are walking around, this corner this got going on, this corner they over here doing this corner they over there having.
So, you know, we get loose, we dance a little bit.
They be like, we having a party tonight, but this ain't your kind of party. You be like, yeah, I ain't going. I don't want to go.
And they're in the pool. And they're drinking mimosas in the pool, but then it's like a waitress walking around giving people drinks, just passing people drinks.
So when you get up, they be like, don't touch them bottles right there and only drink them bottles right there. So we already knew what the drill was. You just don't mess with them bottles.
And that's why they lock up our phones, because they know what we see in there, you can get in trouble.
It's sounding kind of dangerous now.
It's a little kinky, but
yeah.
You know.
Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that I was telling you about. Right.
I mean, for the right paper, anything's possible, Cole.
I am the hardest hustler in the world.
You gotta say no to Diddy.
Don't tell me about.
And then here he goes again, and another rapper, well-known rapper, comes and starts feeling on me like, hey, you. So now it just seems like everybody is faded at this point. They're either drunk or
Whatever I want, I get.
on all the drugs, obviously, with this house music. So now I just feel like trapped in, like,
Whatever I want, I get.
and I know the devil when I see it.
You can call me Love.
Version of this shit is just I just want to be the greatest. I want to be the flyest. When I'm walking, I want to dance the best. I want to be the prettiest girl. Then I want to wake up the next day and I want to feel great. I want to go and smash the party again. And that party's the culture.
You know the name. The flashy parties, the billion-dollar deals, the endless hits that shaped a generation. Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just a music mogul in the early 2000s. He was a force of nature, the architect of a hip-hop empire that had the world at his feet. But behind the glamorous magazine covers, the champagne toast, and the diamond-studded life, there was something far darker brewing. Something that, for years, simmered under the surface, hidden by power, money, and an industry that worshipped him. And then, the cracks begin to show. Imagine this. The music's pumping at one of Diddy's infamous Hamptons white parties, the kind you killed to get into. The who's who of Hollywood, hip-hop and Wall Street are there, laughing and toasting as models sashay across the lawn in tight dresses. The air is thick, full of money and lust. But just outside of that perfect frame, just out of sight, is a truth far uglier than any tabloid scandal could prepare you for. Because that's how it all started. In the shadows, the whispered rumors of abuse, of control, of a man who wasn't just shaping the music industry, but manipulating the lives of those closest to him. Diddy wasn't already born a monster. He was created to be a monster. And he couldn't get out of his own way. You didn't want to believe it, right? How could you? The guy who told you to dream bigger and hustle harder. But when the lawsuits started dropping, one by one, allegations that weren't just about money, but about lives shattered, abuses inflicted, and a trail of destruction he left in his wake, the image of the untouchable mogul began to crumble. And that's when you started wondering how much of Diddy's empire was built on talent and how much on control, manipulation, and silence. Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear isn't the story of a music icon. It's the story of a man whose grip on power was so tight, it started to choke those closest to him. This isn't just about Sean Combs, the businessman. This is about Sean Combs, the predator lurking behind the music. And what's coming next, you won't be able to believe it.
This is Jewel of the Day. You better be good. Hang with me tonight, because we're going to have some fun.
In the first episode of Surviving Diddy, we ended in the year 1999. Diddy had just been acquitted of the charges of weapons violations because of a shooting at a club in New York alongside his then girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez. This left behind rapper Shine to take the fall for them both.
All of us want to be recognized for our talent and take over the world. I was defending him, and he turned around and called witnesses to testify against me, and he contributed. He pretty much sent me to prison.
And now, in the early 2000s, Diddy wasn't just a hip-hop mogul. He was becoming a household name, thanks in part to making the band. The show was a hit, a cultural moment that cemented his brand, not only as a music executive, but as a savvy businessman with an eye for talent.
So I can dream of the day that we can sign our contract. I'm proud to, sign y'all to the Bad Boy family. You ain't signing your life away, but you're all signing into a contract. But it's like a marriage, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you want to do this. Make sure you have read the fine print, because once you're in, it ain't no way out, no.
He had transformed Bad Boy Records into a powerhouse, launching the careers of groups like Danity Kane and Day 26, further elevating his profile on a global scale. But as his fame grew, so did the shadow trailing behind him.
You look at anybody that's really, really big, they've sacrificed some things. Madonna's sacrificing. Michael Jackson has sacrificed. Jay-Z has sacrificed. Biggie, Tupac. Myself, we've sacrificed some stuff.
It was 2000 when yet another crack in Diddy's public image began to show. April Lampros, a woman who had been involved with Combs, stepped forward again with shocking allegations, according to her May 2024 lawsuit. She claimed he had physically assaulted her in her own apartment. The media downplayed the incident, brushing it off as a private dispute. After all, Diddy was at the height of his success, and no one wanted to believe that the man behind the music could be so dangerous behind closed doors. But this was just the beginning. In 2001, the allegations against Diddy took a much darker and more violent turn. Talia Graves, a 25-year-old woman, accused Diddy of a horrific crime. According to Graves, she had been lured to a Bad Boy recording studio by Diddy himself. There, he allegedly drugged her, spiking her drink before she lost consciousness. What followed next was a nightmare. Graves claimed she awoke to find herself bound, with Diddy and his bodyguard Joseph Sherman taking turns violently her. She wasn't just brutalized, she was humiliated. They reportedly slammed her head into a pool table repeatedly, as if to send a message. This wasn't just about control, it was about domination, total submission. But what made this case even more chilling was what Graves would later discover. In November 2023, more than 2 decades after the alleged assault, she learned that Diddy and Sherman had secretly recorded the entire attack. The footage of her brutalization wasn't just a sick trophy for them, it was distributed as shared among others to degrade her further and solidify their hold over the men around them. Graves believed the video had been circulated through Sherman's underground company, adding another layer of darkness to an already horrifying event. The involvement of Gloria Allred, a prominent lawyer known for taking on high-profile cases of sexual assault and abuse, was a pivotal moment in Graves' fight for justice. Allred held a press conference where she just didn't share the details of the case. She made sure the world was listening.
Gloria Allred, and with me is our client, plaintiff Thalia Graves. Today we filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court, Southern District of New York, for our client, plaintiff Thalia Graves, who is given permission to use her name. The case number of the 26-page complaint is 1:CV-07-201. In her lawsuit, Thalia, through her attorneys, sues Sean Diddy Combs.
Could it be true? Was the same man who was building empires and shaping pop culture capable of such cruelty? And if these allegations were just coming to light now, what else had Diddy hidden in the shadows? What started with making the band, the reality TV show that expanded Diddy's reach and public adoration, was now transforming into something else entirely, a public reckoning. By 2001, the shine of Diddy's success was already starting to tarnish. But it wasn't just the deeply disturbing allegations of sexual violence that were dragging him into the spotlight. This time, it was a public altercation that couldn't be swept under the rug, a physical attack that played out in front of witnesses. Roger Mills, a local TV host, found himself at the center of Diddy's rage. It was supposed to be a routine encounter, one of those moments where a camera catches a celebrity in their element. But things spiraled out of control fast. According to Mills, the confrontation began with words, but quickly escalated to violence. He claimed that Diddy's entourage roughed him up, assaulted him, and went even further. They destroyed his camera, a clear message that no footage of the incident would leave the scene. Mills didn't stop there. He filed a lawsuit accusing Diddy not only of assault, but also of false imprisonment, destruction of property, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It was more than just a heated exchange. Mills described it as a terrifying ordeal, one in which he felt utterly powerless against the force of Diddy's celebrity and the aggression of his crew. For a man like Diddy, someone who had built his empire on charm, confidence, and dominance, this was the last thing he needed.
It was definitely like one of the hardest years of my life, overall, like going through this and personal stuff. It's just like, I can relate. I know there's millions of people out there that can relate to like those months or those years when it just seems like everything is just going wrong, just like everything.
His legal team jumped into action, denying any wrongdoing. In their eyes, the lawsuit was just another attempt to exploit Diddy's fame for attention and money. A spokesperson for Combs went on the offense, claiming the accusations were totally false, and framed Mills' suit as nothing more than a cheap grab for headlines. They flipped the narrative, presenting Diddy as the victim of yet another attack on his status. Diddy countersued, claiming defamation, flipping the script once again. But the question lingered. How could a man who was so cool under pressure, who carried himself as the untouchable architect of hip-hop culture, find himself embroiled in these violent, ugly confrontations? It was a side of Diddy the public wasn't used to seeing. The mask slipping, the empire builder showing cracks. For 3 years, the case dragged on. In 2004, the final verdict came in. The jury sided with Diddy. To many, this was a vindication, a sign that the allegations against him, both in this case and others, were just the price of fame. But to others, it was another example of a wealthy, powerful man escaping accountability. And that's the thing. The verdict didn't erase the incident from public memory. Even though the law had spoken, the damage was done. For every fan who continued to see Diddy as a business icon, there were others who couldn't shake the image of a man involved in yet another altercation, flexing his power and influence behind the scenes. This wasn't the first time Diddy had faced legal trouble, and it wouldn't be the last. But in the minds of many, this was yet another piece of the puzzle. The public mogul who built up his image as a king of culture while privately tearing down those who got in his way. The Roger Mills case was just one battle in the larger war for Diddy's reputation, but it hinted at a disturbing trend, one where the violence, intimidation, and power plays were never far from the surface. Behind the million-dollar deals and the platinum records, there was always a darker narrative lurking in the background. And for Diddy, the real question was whether that narrative would finally catch up to him. In the early 2000s, Diddy was riding high, with his influence reaching new heights as both a music mogul and an entrepreneur. But beneath the polished image, the shadows of darker accusations began to surface. What initially seemed like isolated claims soon snowballed into a growing series of sexual misconduct and abuse allegations that cast a long, sinister shadow over his empire. In 2003, a shocking lawsuit emerged, accusing Diddy and his close associate, Harvey Pierre, of serious misconduct. The unnamed 17-year-old woman alleged that she was invited to a New York recording studio with the expectation of meeting Diddy for a potential career opportunity. But what unfolded there was far from what she had envisioned. She claimed that once inside the studio, she was drugged and subsequently assaulted by Diddy and Pierre. The details of the incident were deeply troubling, as she described a scenario where she had lost control of her faculties, making it impossible for her to consent to anything. The assault was reportedly filmed, adding another layer of distress to the ordeal. The lawsuit, though filed anonymously, gained attention and painted a picture of abuse and exploitation with Diddy's inner circle. Pierre's involvement as a top executive at Bad Boy Records deepened the gravity of the situation, raising questions about how widespread such behaviors might have been. In a separate case in 2003, another woman, Crystal McKinney, brought forward a similar claim. She accused Diddy of drugging and sexually assaulting her at his New York studio. McKinney claimed that during a meeting, she had been given drugs that impaired her ability to resist, resulting in a disturbing and non-consensual encounter. The accusations were compounded by the fact that the alleged assault was said to have been recorded, adding further humiliation to the experience. McKinney's lawsuit made waves and further tarnished Diddy's public image as a charming mogul who had built his empire on the backs of hard work and creativity. Amidst these allegations, Dawn Richard, a contestant on Diddy's hit reality show Making the Band, would also come forward with her own story of mistreatment during the production of the series.
I still want to make music with you. I still want you to be signed to the label.
Richard described the relentless pressure of the show, which involved intense schedules, little sleep, and harsh physical demands. The emotional and physical toll it took on her was staggering. Richard was subjected to verbal abuse and pushed to her limits in a grueling environment.
Were you going to see Puff later? So we'd all get ready, and then we wait. Like, that would be at like maybe 7 a.m. He wouldn't call till 6 p.m. We get in the van, we wait in the van for about 3 hours. So now it's about 11, and they would say 2 minutes. Every group do your thing. You're about to audition, and he's cutting tonight. Your hair and makeup is all fucked up because you've been waiting for the last 10 hours for it. It's great, it's genius.
She lost a significant amount of weight, which later led to a diagnosis of anemia, highlighting the damaging effects of the harsh production conditions. Richard's experience on the show also shed light on how the behind-the-scenes reality of Diddy's empire was not as glamorous as it seemed. The demanding atmosphere, combined with the verbal mistreatment, added to the growing narrative that Diddy's methods for building his empire may have been far more abusive than previously thought. As these stories begin to emerge, Diddy's public persona, carefully curated over years of hard work and charisma, started to crack. The mounting allegations reflected a pattern of behavior that was difficult to ignore. What had once been whispers of misconduct were now becoming a wave of legal battles and damaging lawsuits, threatening to unravel the very foundation of his empire. But what's coming next was the final straw that broke the camel's back. By 2005, Sean Diddy Combs had solidified his position as one of the most powerful moguls in the entertainment industry. He had a reputation as a visionary, a man with the magic touch for creating superstars. But the rise of his empire was being shadowed by increasingly sinister whispers. Allegations of abuse, manipulation, and toxic relationships that would continue to haunt his legacy. But at this time in 2005, they just fell to the wayside. Then, in 2005, Casey Ventura, a 19-year-old singer with stunning looks and a promising future, entered the picture, and with her arrival, a dark chapter in Diddy's life would begin.
Everybody can hear from me now. Focus inside out about the project. I want Cassie to, everybody to meet Cassie. Hear a story.
The meeting between Diddy and Cassie reportedly took place in 2005, and it was described as the beginning of a complex and increasingly unhealthy dynamic. According to Dawn Richard, a former member of Danity Kane and a close witness to the early days of Diddy's relationship with Cassie, Diddy's behavior towards the young singer was troubling from the start. Richard claimed she witnessed Diddy fixating on Cassie the moment they met. His focus on the young artist seemed to exclude everyone else in the room, as if he were already plotting to bring her into his orbit. Richard observed how he began isolating Cassie from the others, which, as she would later testify, was an early indication of the control and manipulation that would soon follow. It was an introduction that would set the stage for what Richard, in a lawsuit filed years later, would describe as the beginning of years of psychological and physical abuse. In early 2006, Cassie signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Records, a move that would ultimately prove to be both a career launch and a descent into a nightmarish cycle of abuse. While on the surface, the deal seemed like a dream for the young singer who had just released her debut single, Me and You, the truth behind the scenes was much darker. Cassie's signing was not just a business transaction. It marked the beginning of a toxic and manipulative relationship that would stretch far beyond the recording studio. What began with the promise of fame and success would quickly devolve into a nightmare of control, abuse, and exploitation. Cassie would later come forward with disturbing allegations that painted a grim picture of what her time under Diddy's influence truly entailed. According to her, Diddy was not the charming mogul the world saw. Behind closed doors, he became an abuser, a manipulator, and someone who orchestrated a web of psychological torment and physical violence. She alleged that during their time together, she was repeatedly drugged, a tactic that left her vulnerable and at his mercy. She was forced into sexual situations, including encounters with male sex workers, while Diddy filmed those moments for his own pleasure. The disturbing practice was called freak-offs, and it involved Cassie being manipulated into engaging in activities that further cemented Diddy's control over her body and mind. But the nightmare didn't stop there. Cassie's experiences were also marked by physical violence, with Diddy reportedly beating her multiple times, often when she dared to speak to other men or show signs of independence. Richards, who witnessed some of the episodes, claims that Diddy's controlling behavior escalated to the point where it became impossible for Cassie to escape the cycle of abuse. The allegations Cassie brought forward were difficult to ignore, painting a picture of a young woman trapped in a relationship that combined sex trafficking, coercion, and emotional humiliation, all masked by the glittering promise of fame and fortune. It was a reality far darker than the one fans saw when Cassie graced the charts. The rise of her career and Diddy's continued dominance in the industry were inextricably tied to the cycle of abuse that Cassie would suffer through for years. Her talent was manipulated for Diddy's own personal gains, and as the years went on, her situation only worsened. The public image of a glamorous, powerful duo masked the terror she faced behind the scenes, a terror that continued to unfold until she finally broke free. For Cassie, 2005 to 2006 marked not just the launch of a music career, but the beginning of a life ruled by manipulation, fear, and control. A life where her autonomy was systematically stripped away by the very person who was supposed to be her mentor. Leading us to the beginning of Diddy's infamous Hampton white parties that everyone wanted to go to. Stick around and uncover how these parties turned into freak-offs that are now in the history books of what led him to be federally indicted. The Hamptons, known for its sun-kissed shores and the lavish lifestyles of the elite, have long been a playground for the rich and famous. For years, Diddy's infamous white parties, where the who's who of the entertainment world gathered, were known as the ultimate showcase of extravagance. Celebrities, models, moguls, and influencers flocked to the events, donning white attire and indulging in a night of celebration and luxury. However, behind the glamoring white lights and glamorous facade of these parties lay a dark underbelly of exploitation, manipulation, and sex trafficking. One of the most harrowing accounts to emerge from these notorious events comes from Adria English, a model and aspiring actress whose life was allegedly manipulated and controlled by Diddy and his entourage. English, like many others, entered the entertainment industry with dreams of fame and success. But those dreams, according to her allegations, quickly turned into a nightmare of sexual exploitation. She claims that Diddy, along with employees from his inner circle, systematically groomed her over time, luring her into a life of sex work. English was introduced to Diddy's world at the peak of his celebrity empire, where the lines between fame and abuse blurred. She was told that the parties were exclusive, a gateway to networking and success, but the reality was far more sinister. The white parties became infamous not just for their celebrity-studded guest lists, but for the secrets they hid. According to English's testimony, these events, while attended by high-profile names in the entertainment industry, were used as a front for sex trafficking. She claimed that models like herself were selected, drugged, and forced to perform sexual acts with wealthy and powerful guests. English alleges that the use of drug-laced alcohol was a common practice, making it easier for the party organizers to control the women and keep them compliant. The guests at these parties were often wealthy elite, including high-ranking names in the music industry, fashion, and business sectors. The Vibe magazine team, widely known for its prominence in hip-hop culture, was said to be involved in the inner circles of these gatherings. Jacob the Jeweler, a renowned jeweler to the stars, was also implicated, adding another layer of industry connection to the scandal. These parties were the epitome of power and prestige, but they were also breeding grounds for exploitation, a dark truth that many in the industry, both inside and outside of Diddy's influence, were willing to turn a blind eye to. Central to the disturbing sex trafficking allegations is the role of Tamikio Thomas, a model and friend of Diddy's who was accused of recruiting young women like English into the world of sex work at these parties. According to English's account, Thomas acted as the gatekeeper to Diddy's circle, bringing women into his orbit under the guise of promoting their careers. However, instead of advancing their modeling and acting aspirations, Thomas allegedly led them into the world of sexual exploitation. Thomas's involvement extended beyond mere recruitment. She was said to have influenced and coached the women into submitting to Diddy's demands and those of his elite guests. English recounts being introduced to the use of alcohol laced with drugs, which helped dull the resistance and made it easier for the powerful men in attendance to take advantage of them. It was about keeping the women compliant in the face of sexual coercion and humiliation. What makes English's allegations even more disturbing is the alleged complicity of major entities and figures in the entertainment and fashion world. Vibe magazine, a music magazine with ties to Diddy in the hip-hop industry, had often been seen as an authority on celebrity culture. Yet it is reported that some of his team members were allegedly present at these parties and turned a blind eye to the illicit activities occurring behind closed doors. In 2009, English filed a lawsuit that would have sweeping implications for the music industry and the media that had long been complicit in hiding the darker sides of celebrity culture. In her legal documents, she described how she had been manipulated and abused by a powerful system that catered to those who used fame as a shield for their depravity. Her lawsuit was not just a personal battle. It became a symbol of the system's failure to protect vulnerable individuals in the entertainment industry. The allegations cast a spotlight on the broader culture of abuse and exploitation that plagued the world of modeling, music, and fashion. The lawsuit also revealed how prominent magazines and media outlets had helped perpetuate a cycle of silence, enabling powerful individuals to continue their harmful behaviors without fear of repercussion. For English, the lawsuit was a way to expose the corruption and exploitation that were pervasive in the very industry she had once dreamed of conquering. Her case was a wake-up call for the industry to confront the uncomfortable truths of how models and women were often manipulated by those in power. As the details of the white parties and the sex trafficking allegations emerged, the ripple effect was felt across the industry. The fallout led to increased scrutiny on the connections between wealth, celebrity, and sexual exploitation, urging the public and industry professionals to reevaluate their perceptions of the people they idolized.
You stay away from the bullshit. You can
constant defense strategy, a firm denial of all accusations. He repeatedly claimed that the lawsuits were motivated by money and were designed to tarnish his legacy. The mogul consistently categorized the victims as opportunists, dismissing their claims as false and accusing them of attempting to capitalize on the success of his empire. His legal team worked tirelessly to discredit the plaintiffs, raising doubts about their credibility, particularly because many of the claims were coming years after the alleged incidents. By framing the accusations as a coordinated attack on his wealth and influence, Diddy attempted to keep the public and his loyal fan base on his side. Despite the growing number of cases, he continued to portray himself as a business icon and a successful, brilliant entertainment mind. His public persona remained largely intact. He remained in the public eye as a confident, unstoppable force, even as the legal battles surrounding him became impossible to ignore. As we continue to explore more shocking revelations in Surviving Diddy about Diddy's empire and the hidden truths behind the scenes will continue to unfold. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because Surviving Diddy is just beginning. Don't miss the next episode in the wild, untold saga of survivors as we continue to expose the Diddy.